Stripe's Black Friday mini city ad. It was like such an amazing way to like show off the different companies that Stripe works with and like that are in the like, tech ecosystem. So basically, Stripe created a live stream miniature city 8 feet in diameter with 15 buildings, 8 motorized elements like trains, blimps, and 100 plus figures that was operated by a 24/7 crew of model makers during the weekend. So basically, you could tune in to the live stream and just see them building it out during those like 24 hours. It was built entirely by hand using paper, foam, cardboard, and acrylic paint. And part of what like really stuck out to me is this whole idea of what we've been talking about here previously is the craft versus like AI, where it's like there's a bunch of companies that are kind of putting a stake in the ground of like, we want to focus on craft, on like how things are made, on being human made, right? So we previously talked about the Wallace and Gromit and Barbour partnership, Apple TV creating the logo from glass. And now we have Stripe kind of, creating this and using that as a way to bring attention not only to Stripe, but all the companies that are using Stripe. And one of the things that really stuck out to me too was the fact that like we've already seen that Stripe cares about that because they have like Stripe Press, so that they're creating books that appeal to like their consumer and using that as a way to support the arts, right? They're doing it in conjunction to like the Stripe business itself. This is year 2 that they've done this. Last year it was all online of like building the little city digitally, and this time they're like, let's make it bigger. Let's build it IRL. And one of the things I was thinking is like, what are they going to do next year, right? Like, could they potentially create some sort of like Christmas market or like an experiential like marketing experience, like at a mall, right? That was like something I saw one year done by like Hello Sunshine. They brought like all the books that they sell and like put them all together into like the store, right? So it was like just a pop up. Did you guys see the live stream?
Just highlights. It looked super, super cute. I actually didn't know, or maybe I just forgot that they did this last year too, but it's super cute.
I didn't actually see the live stream, but I saw so many people tweeting about it,
Mm-hmm.
just tweeting when they found their own companies in
Mm-hmm.
it, and kind of like screenshotting the different ways that their companies were showing up. What I thought was really cool, kind of like you mentioned, is that it wasn't just, hey, here are my customers, but from what I remember, Crumble Cookies was
Mm-hmm.
like a food truck type thing, and they had different companies in the context of where they were. It almost kind of reminded me of The Sims or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, where you're in this almost miniature world and you're just looking to see how these things that you're really, really familiar with, how they show up in this world, how they engage in
Hmm.
this world.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stood out beyond like the idea itself was like that there was that little like nudge of surprise for like the companies that were featured, because it didn't seem as if like Stripe was like, hey, you're going to be featured in this. It was like, no, you kind of go, you pay attention, you search around for things. So this kind of like harkens back to what we've been talking about like Easter eggs and having people engage with like what you're creating and making them go in search of like your company, right? So I saw a bunch of like the companies themselves and like employees at the companies, showing the photos of like their company being there. So it's like you're getting all this engagement because like people have that surprise and like whimsy of seeing their company featured, but then also how they were featured, right? Like the fact that it's like a little food truck, right? That it's like it still makes sense for like what it is. There were a few of them that were like, coming soon for like companies that are just being built right now and that are growing. So it's like it really shows the thought that was put into it that really correlates with how the real world businesses are doing themselves, right? They even had like TBPN featured as well, right? So it's like all these things that were kind of like inside jokes for people that really know. And then those people then got to share that content of saying like, hey, did you notice this? So it's like I mean, for me, it was like all day. I just kept seeing like little, photos of the different companies, but then also like the additional context from the people that like know, right? And getting that engagement for themselves. So that's like a really smart way of getting people to play along with you by like wanting to share your content, but then using it to kind of promote themselves in a way.
Yep.
um,
Absolutely. And we all are in marketing, we're kind of familiar with just how much money you have to spend in B2B, just
mhm.
from the context of driving demand, from the context of the ads that you have to pay in order to get good CPLs and good decision makers in the door and all of that stuff. And so I feel like something like this, where you have a one-time investment and then the rest of it is just a lot of organic marketing and earned
Mhm.
marketing from your customers, I feel like is just a brilliant play. And of course, I'm recognizing that Stripe has the brand, has the money. They're, similar to Ramp, they're playing a very different ballgame than probably a lot of B2B companies. But similarly, I think one of the lessons about just putting your customers in the spotlight is that a lot of your customers will then extend the reach and extend the shelf life effectively of your single investment in paid activation.
Yeah, definitely. To your point, Krishan, just like Ramp, right? Like these are two like fintech businesses that are, would usually be boring type, like they just do like commercials and stuff. And I think when the Ramp experiential marketing thing happened, what I had kind of compared it to was like they could have just done the easy thing, like doing a Super Bowl ad, right? And spent the money that way. But what made it unique is that we know they have money, right? But instead of defaulting to like the easiest way to spend money, they're like, well, what can we do with this amount of money that would be interesting and get us more attention than just, the regular like Super Bowl ad? And I think that that's similar to what Stripe did here, where they're just like, yeah, we could just do, the boring stuff. I mean, we saw, right, like Coinbase did the like Super Bowl ad like 2 years ago. And like, do I really think that that like affected them or brought them new leads? Sure, it might have introduced more people, like did the brand awareness, but like I really think that the ramp, experience and now this Stripe thing, made more people curious as to like what the brand does and what they're going to do in the future just because like this was so unique and it like stands out for that reason.
Mhm. I think what also stands out to me is just how human it is. You know,
Mm,
model makers. I think they had professional model
yeah.
makers, right?
Hmm.
It wasn't even like just volunteer employees. It was
No, no.
actual model makers
Yeah.
who like this is what they do,
Uh-huh.
people building it. And it's the kind of thing that like it's just very human. Like
Hmm.
you can appreciate the craft of it, all the details, and really marvel at like, wow, people really thought of this. I mean, for some reason it made me think about, but I think it was Pepsi who did like an AI generated ad.
Well, so
Like
Coca-Cola did their
was it
Christmas.
Coca-Cola
Yeah,
then?
yeah.
Yeah, it was that.
Yeah. I think what we talked about that here as well, but what stuck out to me about that was that it wasn't the CEO, but like I guess like their marketing person was like, well, the cat's out of the bag. Like, we're not putting AI, back. People are just going to use it. So we might as well just use it to create like the Christmas ad. Which to me kind of showed that like they just don't care to like keep the
Yeah, yeah,
integrity of their brand. Because the thing is like, if we really think about it, I'm sure Stripe uses AI. It's a tech company, right?
yeah,
But do they have
right.
to use it for this? Like it's the fact that
Exactly.
they chose to, bring the human element into it and show like these are the companies we work with that we're proud to work with, like, and we're highlighting them and their business and like the human side to it. We get real makers to make this thing instead of creating it. I guess they could have doubled down on the digital version that they did last year. Like, oh, we, vibe coded this like new city. And instead they're like, no, let's focus on doing an actual city with actual humans making the thing instead of using AI to like make it easier for us.
Yeah,
And
100%. So well said.
there's two sides of the AI coin too, where one is efficiency, and I think to your point, Amanda, there are a lot of opportunities to be more efficient, especially when it comes to marketing and especially when it comes to advertising at scale. But there is also just so much value in good, hard things that
Hmm.
take time and take a lot of energy and that you can't really do. I don't think there's any way Stripe could have done this efficiently. It took a lot of work to not
Hmm.
only do the live stream, but do the planning, figure out the model making, all of that stuff. And I think it stands out partly because of that too,
Hmm.
because so many things are focused on efficiency and focused on being done quickly. When you see things that take a lot of work, that take a lot of thought, and that especially have a lot of tangible impact in the real world, then you definitely admire those more from an activation perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think also just going off that, Kushan, is the fact that they live streamed it, right? So many companies these days are let's talk about like the launch video, right? They're putting together like a very neat, like shortened video, and they're like, no, we're going to show you the entire process of what it is to build this thing and show you what that looks like. And I think um, that also added to the spectacle because it's like, oh, you get to see it happen in real life and then see how long it actually takes and how intricate it like actually is and that like it made me marvel at like wow, humans can actually do this, you know? I mean, you see it right with like movies. I mean, that's kind of what it made me think about. I was like, oh, like a little city, like you know how you saw in like Back to the Future, or they built, you know, like the city and the like the diorama and stuff. But I guess I just generally wouldn't have had context of how long it actually takes to put that all together. So seeing the like live stream version of it, of like you see the little, you know, them kind of with their hands, like putting it all together, made me marvel even more. And then respect Stripe even more for being like, no, we're gonna focus on the craft of this. So it's like really making Stripe as a company stand out as like a company that cares about like craft and detail and, you know, being good at like what they do. Instead of like now I kind of just see Coca-Cola as like, oh, we don't care. Oh, it's just slop, you know, which
Right.
is kind of what soda is, right?
It's true. No, you're gonna buy us anyway. Let's be real.
Exactly, right?
To that point, though, if they built the mini city and didn't live stream it and just was like, "Hey, look at it. We made this from
Hmm.
scratch," the magic would kind of be lost. You'd be like, "Wow,
I
that's
think
really
so.
cool,"
Hmm.
and then you'd
And
shrug
then
and
you
be
just go
like, "I guess
away,
it took a
you
long
know?
time." Yeah.
That's yeah, that's very true. Like if they had just kind of, you know, done it and then shared even just a time
Yeah.
lapse, like you still the joy of it would have like gone away or like the whimsy of like
Yeah.
them actually doing it and you kind of just being able to like chill while it's happening. I thought the other thing too is the fact that it happened over you know, Black Friday where it's like, you know, you're not you kind of just have things in the background happening, right? You have like the Macy's Day Parade and like,
True.
you know,
That's
you can just kind of
true.
have it going on and it's not something that like you have to feel like you pay attention to.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point because this is making me so sad that I didn't watch it
Yeah.
live streamed. I'm like, "Man."
Yeah.
My one wish, and I don't actually know, maybe Sonia, you know if this is possible, is it would have been cool to interact with the companies. I think for the most part
Mm,
they appeared kind of as billboards or action
mhm,
figures, but it would be cool if you were to be able to go into Stripe City and you could click on like a lovable or something and it would, allow
mhm.
you to create something like that. I'm guessing at some point that also probably would be a whole different conversation about who do they
Yeah, right?
prioritize for
Yeah.
those experiences. But I think, like, the idea of, uh I'm almost, like, thinking of a world where Stripe City could almost be some sort of, like, RPG game and you're
Yeah, literally a video
walking
game where you just
around
go
and interacting
play.
with Stripe brands and all that stuff. But anyway, I'm sure Patrick Carlson has better ideas than I do for Stripe City.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, next year we'll see the Striped City video game, you know? That could be a lot of fun. Cool. So, lessons here is that kind of like the ramp thing is that B2B doesn't have to be boring. You know, like I'm so excited for more people to kind of pay attention to how they're marketing themselves and the businesses that they work with, that it's not just about, you know, buying ads or building, you know, SEO and you know all these things that like we're already doing. I think people are wanting novelty and are looking for it. So companies that have the money like start, you know, thinking about how you can differentiate yourself versus your competitors. Even with like the Ramp doing their experiential marketing thing, like this is so different that like we're talking about them in the same space, but they're still so different and unique that it makes me, you know, look at each company company individually. Whereas like, we've talked about this with like the launch videos. It was like the first couple, companies that did it, it was like, oh, yay, novelty. And then now it's kind of like, oh, well, it's just the trend. Everybody's kind of jumping in on it and it's not unique anymore. So that's something for like marketers keep an eye out for. It's like, what can you do that's new for like your company, and then like what also makes sense, right? Because this makes sense for Stripe, right? Where it's like these are all the consumers that we work with, similar to the Shopify, right? With working with TBPN, it's like we're bringing attention to our merchants and the people that we work with, and it's not just about the company itself.